Welcome to the Clarinet Ninja Podcast. My name is Jay Hassler, and as always, I'm doing my best to bring you the finest in clarinet education and entertainment. Playing us in today is Mr. David Gould. The piece you're hearing is called New Picture. That is the title of his new album. I'm going to leave links all over the place in the show notes, in the description. However you're watching or listening to this, you will be able to find your way to this album. I think still an album, in any case, and to Mr. David Gould. And you'll also be able to find your way to me. And if you're an adult clarinet player who's looking to really refine the way that they practice, the way that they learn, and put your trajectory into light speed, check out clarinetninja.com and the Clarinet Ninja Dojo. Links for those will be quite obvious because I want you to find me if you are looking for me. Before we get going, don't forget to like, subscribe, 5 stars, leave a nice review, make a nice comment if you'd like. No further ado, let's listen to the conversation with David Gould.
Oh my
Gould, God. So glad you're here.
It's great to see you, Jay. I'm glad we could put this together.
Yeah, me too. Now, tell me about this new recording, because, you know, I feel a little bit bad because I wasn't the first to know about this recording. And I'm not even the first podcast you're on. But could you tell us, give us the elevator pitch on this.
Well, I'll tell you, I recorded it and we put it out September 1st of last year. I did a bunch of little video blurbs talking about each piece and, the promo I wanted to do to hopefully get to people. And of course, every day I realized people don't know about it. And I felt horrible putting each one out going, oh my God, me again, people are going to nuts. And I put one every week talking about a piece. I had a plan and all organized. Anyway, here we go. My latest album, my second album, that I put together that it's featuring me is for bass, clarinet, and piano. It's called New Picture. It's music that was either written for me or arranged for me by the likes of Jimmy Heath, the famous jazz composer and saxophonist. Paquita de Rivera arranged a movement of one of his works to fit the bass clarinet that I could record. And then my pianist and friend and colleague, Peter Bannister, wrote a couple pieces. And is a friend writing you the hardest thing he possibly could, I guess, or at least that's what it feels like. So I don't know if he's really my friend anymore, or foe. But either way, that a Swiss composer, Alexander Rieden, who I had played one of his works with a friend, and he liked it and was very kind. And a month or two later in the mail, I had a solo piece he just sent to me, and then, developed and another composer, blah, blah, blah. I'm not doing a particularly great job of this, but what can I tell you? How can I explain more?
Well, listen, here's what I want to do.
Okay.
You've just sort of very casually said I played a piece with a friend, and I happen to know who this friend is, right? I mean, those Philippe Couper at the Clarinet Association. Yeah, so I mean, so you're downplaying a little bit of a thing here, right? So, yeah.
Okay, well, look, I don't like name dropping. But he's a friend. I mean, he played clarinet at my wedding. He was my clarinet teacher. He's a friend anyway. So yes.
No, listen, man. I'm here to do the name dropping for you.
Thank you. Okay,
I'm happy to do that. Can you? I'm learning stuff right and left here. I didn't know that you studied with him.
Okay, so yeah. I'll give a quick blurb.
Yeah.
I went to Juilliard and I studied with Stanley Drucker and Ayako Oshima a little bit. All the while, at least from my second year on, I started moonlighting. I started taking lessons with David Weber. And he really became a dear mentor and a good friend and a great teacher to me. He really explained so much. When I finished my 4 years at Juilliard and I got a grant to study in France, a scholarship from an American foundation in Paris. And I spent a year studying with Michel Arignon at a municipal conservatory. And I ended up meeting Philippe Couper. It's a long, funny story, but I met him and I went and I had a lesson with him and it was really great. It was really felt like what I needed. So I just spent 2 years studying with him. And just before all that, I spent a summer studying with a guy named Jacques Lancelot. In my summer between junior and senior year, I went to France and at Weber's encouraging to get, what he would call a second opinion. And I had a lesson he trusted Lanslow, so it was the second opinion he knew would be good. And I had a lesson every other day for a month, basically, in a tiny little town in the south of France. And I practiced the clarinet probably 8 or 9 hours a day with probably 20 other clarinet players. We all did the same thing. I made the festival international, otherwise it was all pretty much French people. And we would go out to a little cafe every night, all of us, and talk and laugh and drink and, never to excess. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's my history, essentially, with those people. So that's how I became friends with Philippe and yeah.
Well, so just for anyone who's not necessarily familiar with David Weber, or I think he's Mr. Weber most of the time, right? He is Mr. Weber.
Right.
So he's a legendary player and teacher in New York City, right? I mean, really, I don't think I'm overstating this, that like he was a major influence of many, many, many players that came through New York City and studied at Juilliard.
Yep.
And I don't know, he may have taught him a lot of places. I don't know his history all that well.
Well, he taught at Juilliard for a while and then left. That's another long story for another day.
Yep.
But then many people would go and have lessons here and there with him, or play for him, or he was a terrific pedagogue, and gave you something different to think about. I mean, I'm not overstepping by saying people like Patrick Messina or Ricardo Morales, Jessica Phillips, and not to mention regular students, Dan Gilbert, Todd Levy, John Manassi, Merrill Apt. There was a ton of people and a lot of different walks of life that he touched and taught, and he loved teaching and gave it his all, and really, I think, helped all of us so much.
Well, I mean, also, like, again, I'm sort of just like going on the lore of all this. He has connections all the way back to Bonnard, right? I mean,
he has connections all the way back to Bellison.
Okay.
So David Weber studied. Was from Detroit originally. He's from the old country originally. He came here when he was a little boy. Anyway, ended up in Detroit. Studied with a guy named Roy Schmidt, who was a beautiful clarinet player. There's 1 or 2 recordings of him that exist. And Schmidt, as I understand it, killed himself at some point. And Weber told me the story. He went to his lesson and he couldn't go in, and there was a cop, and what's going on? And I'm here for my lesson with Mr. Schmidt, and the cop basically said, "You're not having a lesson today, kid." So the second clarinet, I believe his name was Luconi, kind of took him under his wing a little bit. He ended up getting a scholarship from Osip Gabrilowicz, the famous musician, and to study in New York. He came to New York. He studied with Bellison, played in Bellison's famous clarinet choir that had the likes of Opperman and Kalman Bloch and Leon Rushinoff, and I mean, many, many people. So he did that for a while, and then he ended up taking lessons with Bonnard over 2 different occasions, became good friends with Ralph McLean, and this is all kind of a lot of what his schooling and what led to everything and led to us. So.
Right, because he was at the center of all of it, and an important part of the center of all of it. I mean,
he played with Toscanini in the NBC Symphony. He played with Stokowski. He played in the New York Philharmonic for a couple seasons. He was playing clarinet in Bernstein's legendary last-minute stepped up to the podium, which is kind of, I didn't know that until much later, and then I was just blown away. And you can actually find the program someone did. I have it somewhere in a text message, and his name's on it. Anyway, sorry, we could go on and on. This is the problem, Jay. We can go on and on.
We could, and to a certain degree we will. But so then also get me straight on this, and I mean this with love and that I have for this person that I've only actually met once. I get the feeling that him endorsing somebody to get a second opinion for a student that he cares about is really high praise, because as far as I know, he wasn't easy to get the respect of.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're saying it very nicely. He had very strong opinions, and opinions based on lots of different things, honestly, that's the truth, but yeah, he became very friendly with Lanslow, and they would see each other, and he says, go. And he had sent a bunch of other students before me to study with Lanslow, and they actually went to the famous Nice Academy, amazing. Wow. I went to this tiny little town that I took, 2 trains, a bus, a car, and maybe a mule to get there.
Right.
But yeah, no, I mean, I think he would only do that with people he trusted. I knew he would send some students to Aspen because he respected a guy named Dick Waller. I know he respected Kalman Block out in LA because they knew each other. I mean, he had a list, honestly,
Right.
but he I think was probably afraid a teacher could undo what he was trying to do, or then there was all the rest, all the dark side of educators and teachers and students, where all the stuff can happen or whatever, meaning you stole my student, or all this sorts of stuff. And
Right.
I mean, I feel very fortunate. And it actually, when I was studying in France, when are you coming home? You got to come home. And we were joking around a lot about this. And I said, it's your fault. You sent me to France to study with Lancelot. So I liked it so much. I found a way to go back with this Harriet Hale Wooley scholarship that I had. And I was there for a year. And then I convinced someone they should study. And then I realized, wow, wait, I'm not done yet. And then after 2 years, you kind of get the hang of it. And then the third year, and then by the end of the third year, it's like, I'm either staying forever or I should go back. And I had a lot of pressure from him. Your career's in the States, you should come back. What did I know? Okay, so I did. My parents were happy, I guess, that I came back too. So that's what happened. I can't rewind or suppose however else it would have gone, but I was lucky to have those experiences that did a lot to teach me and form who I am today.
Touching back to Philippe Capere, the first time I actually really became aware of him was at the Denver Clarinet Association, the Denver conference, and he stepped in kind of at the last minute and played the Mozart quintet. I think that's what he played. And that was the first time I'd heard like a real French guy playing clarinet in person, right?
Yeah.
Like I'd never actually heard that before.
Yeah.
And I was a little bit surprised that I'd never heard that before. But then I had a thought. I mean, I'll name drop. I was sitting next to Ricardo Morales, in the
Sure.
third row. I said to him, I think I get it now. Like that makes sense to me. The sound was so much different than Ricardo's one of my primary teachers, so much different
Right, sure.
than what he made. But there's a lot of connections that are much deeper in terms of the way notes are connected, the way things are happening. But it was just in a brighter sort of higher, like, brighter in a very, very good way.
More colorful.
Yeah, I actually I don't even. I agree with you. I don't. That's not the word I would choose. But yeah. But
Well,
it had a sweetness to it. It was a more feminine sound. When I was talking to Ron Odrich about Bonnard and Marcellus and that style of playing, he said Bob Marcellus always used to say this is a soprano instrument. It should sound like a soprano instrument.
right. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
Berlioz called the clarinet the feminine voice of the orchestra, right? I mean, in
Yeah.
French, it's a feminine instrument.
So when I heard him play, and then Ricardo told me, I'm just blasting his personal life out here, that during COVID he was taking Zoom lessons with Philippe, which I just loved. I was like,
Yeah.
Here's this person that like I think he's an amazing.
He's got it figured out.
Yeah, but still he's working on getting better, and that's the person he chose, which was very, very telling to me that what I heard wasn't wrong.
Well, no, it's true. And it's funny you mentioned him with that in COVID and all. We'll go back to Mr. Weber. He studied with Bernard when he kind of got to New York after some time with Bellison, and he actually met McLean at Bernard's place. And McLean told him, "Oh, I'll teach you everything Bernard can tell you in 2 lessons." Weber didn't believe it, didn't know quite what to make of it, and had lessons with him for a while. And he said he was good, but he wasn't giving him much of anything really. He was making him do stuff, and he says finally one day I think he figured out how to support with the diaphragm, and he figured out something, and he showed up and he said Bernard poked him in the belly and he says, you figured it out. Now that was the first story. Fast forward maybe 15 or 20 years, I don't know. Mr. Weber is in the prime of his career. He's working everywhere and he's doing stuff, and I think he just felt like he had more to learn, so he went back to Bernard, and Bernard took him through all the conservatory pieces and all sorts of music. And he said, the second time around is when he learned a lot from Bernard about music and about the style and about wasn't made. So maybe Bernard, for him, wasn't a great whatever fundamentals teacher, but he certainly became a terrific coach, if you will, and
Right.
so. But yeah, I mean, I know you said you wanted to talk kind of about the differences that I had witnessed between for example, the French school and the American school. I mean, granted, now I left France. I mean, I keep going back, and there are a lot of friends, and I get to hear a lot of the young players. But I left in 1999, so I was there from, full time 96 to 99, and I think that how they get what they have. I think the focus on things is a little different. So the focus is a little bit more on repertoire per se, and I think they start very early. They learn all sorts of solfege, where here we learn everything at the same time. There, I believe it's a year of solfege class before you get an instrument.
In my program for adult learners, one of the things that we start out with is, I'm not sure we start out with it, but one of the things that gets included in a much different place than when I learned it is it's not necessarily sight singing,
Right.
but playing easy passages and being able to take your instrument out of your mouth and sing the next note to prove to yourself that you're actually hearing what you're about to play.
Absolutely.
But yeah, because that is the most powerful thing we have.
Absolutely. And by solfege, like they're learning to read clefs, they're reading notes, they're learning rhythms, all this sort of stuff. Obviously, the solfege we think singing. Obviously, I'm sure there's a singing component, but that's one thing that I was taken by all the players there. They there were no real rhythmic mistakes or something because they learned that earlier. And I think when you're not learning that stuff and the clarinet stuff and everything at the same time, I feel like it becomes a little bit easier to focus. Now, they're still learning everything too, but so I think a focus on repertoire is very different. There's a lot of competitions. Everybody does competitions, competition to get in, competition to get out, competition here, competition. So, and what do you play for competitions? Well, you play different pieces of repertoire, and I think that's a very big part of it. And I also think there's a lot of there very not advanced, but like very clear phrasing. I don't want to say a lot of expression. It's very, very obvious, very out there. Whereas I feel like here we're trying to play perfect, and maybe I'm exaggerating. I'm not trying to belittle a different our school play, but you know what I mean. I feel like everything we want just so from the with the bow on it, everything straight and polished, and I think sometimes we think that's just the goal. The goal's after that, of course. So I don't think there's one that's better or worse at all. Having seen it, and a lot of the players I listen to throughout history, it's a lot of European players, just because it's a different sort of thing than what we're used to. So
getting this back to you and the project that you have yeah.
right,
Have presented the world with. I only know as much as like I saw that you were on another podcast, which
sure,
I quite enjoy, Clarinet Corner. I think it's a very
yeah,
wonderful.
yeah.
I think it's a wonderful podcast. Then I start to think, okay, so all of a sudden I'm aware of this thing, and I don't know why I don't know why you didn't just tell me at any point in time that this record existed. To be fair, like social media is very weird, and our consumption of social media is weird, and maybe I had an opportunity to know this because it was in the world. But here's what I want to know: like this is all bass clarinet stuff, and I know that you're well known as a bass clarinet player. I'm probably more comfortable in saying that I think you're a sought after bass clarinet player. If somebody needs a bass clarinet player, they're looking to you.
Thank you.
And not just in New York. I know that you go a lot of places and play the bass clarinet, but I also know that that's somehow or another what you are known for, but that's not exclusively what you do. And I'm curious to know this intense clarinet playing that you learned from these people. None of them, as far as I know, really were known for playing the bass clarinet.
No, none of them did. So it's funny.
How did that go for you? Yeah.
When I was at Juilliard and finishing up at Juilliard, Mr. Weber said, we should probably get you an E-flat clarinet. You should learn that because, you might get work on it. Okay. Got an E-flat clarinet. I played a lot my last year. Sure. Went to France. I was there. And then when I was leaving France, I said, well, maybe I'll get a bass clarinet and go home. Maybe I'll work more. And so I'll have it. So I got a bass clarinet, and I went straight from the factory, the buffet factory in Mont, and straight up to Van Doren. And I saw a good friend who ended up becoming a mentor. This was before I was working for Van Doren. name was Jean-Paul Gauvin, and we were talking about sound. And it was kind of hilarious. We're sitting in his office and we're passing my bass clarinet back and forth playing, talking about sound and embouchure and all this sort of stuff. And he told me, you start with really soft reeds and don't worry about it. Like, find the voicing, find all this, find your, all this, how we figure things out. And and I did, and I kind of liked it. It was fun, and I came back and had a couple gigs and a couple of opportunities playing. And you play the bass clarinet, and in a lot of cases, it can be considered a solo instrument. If I joke around, bass clarinet can be an instrument in the orchestra, or if you play louder, it's a solo instrument. And I ended up. I was getting called for that. Well, yeah, I had a bass, and I took it somewhat seriously, so I was practicing, whatever. So I had opportunities that for me went well. And I have to say, I'm afraid to even put this out there in the world. I mean, the bass clarinet to me feels, for the most part, a little easier than the clarinet, I'm going to say. You don't have to cover holes, the music goes slower. It's really my speed, and I got into it, and you start playing, and the more and more you play, you enjoy, and you're in the situation, so you get to hear and you listen to what's around you. And I just developed, and then I started preparing for some auditions, and the first person that I think I played a lesson for was Jim Monumenty from the Met Opera. And short of him saying one phrase, the bass clarinet, it's the balance between the reed being not too hard and not too soft, so that way you can play the whole phrase, something typical Jim, stoic-y,
right.
but spot on. And then after that, it was, we worked on the music, and there was no talk about that. And the next time I played for someone was a French guy named Jean-Marc Volta. He was a tester at Buffet. He actually developed the 1193 that we know, the Prestige bass and the Tosca bass, and he wrote a terrific method book, the bass clarinet. And I was fortunate enough, a friend, Patrick Messina, had brought me over to play in the orchestra, his orchestra, that Jean-Marc was in. So I got to hear Jean-Marc play. So I got to hear, and Jean-Marc was, I know he's still around. I know he still plays a little bit. He's that like player. Like, if there's bass clarinet playing, he's playing. It's there. It's tasteful, but it's there. And what I had heard in the average bass clarinet player in the States, the average, not everyone, was, and certainly symphony. If there was a solo, you heard it. Otherwise, it was a good boy, seen and not heard. Good child, I should say, seen and not heard. And that's not my personality. And I played for Jean-Marc a bunch of excerpts, and again, nothing to say about all this other stuff. We just talked about the music. So I came to think maybe I've got fundamentals squared away, and maybe it works. And it's just a fun instrument to play. I think there's only one in an orchestra, so you get to play with the cellos and the basses, the woodwinds. There's just something to it, and like I said, maybe it comes a little bit more naturally for me than the E flat clarinet.
One of the things that I noticed in listening to some of the pieces that are on this new record, which is what we're here to talk about.
Sorry,
but no, it's all right. No, this other stuff, like, listen, this other stuff is like, I love it so much, and I want to share my love and your love with anybody that wants to listen to it. But the thing, when I hear you, and this is for me hearing you play the bass clarinet in real life and on this recording, that it's stunning to me how your bass clarinet sound is round and even, and it projects, but doesn't get edgy. It's this weird sort of mythical thing in my mind. Like, these are all things that you probably won't say for yourself, so I'm going to say them for you. The bass clarinet, I feel like, is an instrument that needs to be played a lot of ways. It needs to be able to go, like, when you need it to go, but it also can be played very lyrically and very beautifully, and it's something other than just an instrument that provides color. And and the way that you approach it really has all of that in there. And I almost find it a little bit irritating, because it sounds so nice when it's doing the thing where it has to go. It still sounds so good. And I think to myself, why the oomph can I do that?
Well, look, I mean, if I can do it, anybody else can do it. I've got a concept in my mind. I don't like that edgy, buzzy sound. For me, it's not, and I've listened, there are some great bass clarinet players throughout the ages who get that sound. And I listen past it, obviously, because you listen to what else? That's their voice. You have a
Right.
pretty voice, it sounds pretty. You have an ugly voice, it's ugly. Whatever, it doesn't matter. But it's what else that they put in it. But no, I have I have a sound in my ear. It's almost easier to say I don't want to sound buzzy. And constantly, I mean, just the other day, I'm just warming up for something, trying reeds with another clarinet player. And I was playing bass, and I said, "Oh, does that sound edgy and buzzy?" He's like, "No," and I'm like, "But it feels like it. I hear that I hear the little zzz in our ear that we hear that probably no one else does, and certainly no one in the audience by the time the sound got there would hear." But I don't like it, so I'm always looking for something that doesn't have that. I don't think I'm playing a very resistant or hard reed or hard setup to do that. I voice in such a way to try to avoid that. I don't know.
I have no idea how you do the magic that you do, but
Thank you.
but when I hear it, it doesn't sound to me like you're playing a soft reed because the sound doesn't ever unfocus. And to me, that's kind of the danger of playing a soft reed is the sound's going to go crazy.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it doesn't go crazy when you do it.
Thank you.
So,
Yeah, I mean, I'm playing like a 3.5 V12 on a medium open mouthpiece, so it's maybe a little firm, but everybody's playing hard reeds, I think, on bass. And again, it's the concept. I know more what I don't want to sound like than what I do.
Well, yeah, but let me do that. I'm gonna call you out on that a little bit. Nobody develops the sound that you have by avoiding things, right?
Well,
I mean, come on, let's be fair.
right.
I mean,
Well, again, look, I'll the beginning of this, I was playing. There were no V12, V20, none of these reeds. So I was playing blue box reeds on a B40, and my friend Jean Paul, he just said, start on 2.5s till you get all the stuffy resistant notes figured out and all this, and then I went up to 3s. And I mean, and I was learning. I was not going out on gigs with 2.5s and 3s or whatever, but
right.
it's a lot of time just practicing and stuff like that, and trying to figure out what I wanted to sound like. And again, having come from living 3 years in France, where I was playing all sorts of solo pieces and stuff. What can I play on the bass? And of course, like everybody else, I have the Bach cello suites. I was trying to play those, and it was all this sort of stuff, and learning to read bass clef, I might add. It just worked through a lot of stuff, and then eventually got to slightly harder reads. But then in the end, you get to that point where now it's too hard and nothing comes out, or now it's the balance. And for me, like I said, it became a voicing exercise, a tongue position, and I don't play with a. I'm sorry for the non-clarinet players listening. This is getting technical. I don't play with like a stiff, perfect clarinet embouchure on bass. I play with like super relaxed, mushy, and that works most of the time until you have to do like high articulation, and then you gotta change, of course. But I mean, like very relaxed and round, and I don't. No, I bite way more on the clarinet than I do on the bass.
In my experience, biting on the bass clarinet is just going to make it not work.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah, and it reminds me a little bit of what you're talking about. Like the short answer that I got from a jazz player actually named Gary Foster, who was not just a jazz player,
sure, legendary studio player.
Yeah, and he played everything, and he played it all really well. And he said to me in his little studio in Alhambra, California, when we were studying jazz alto, he goes, and I was talking about bass clarinet, so I was going to get a bass clarinet, and he goes, Jay, it takes a little while before the bass clarinet becomes your friend. That was his bass clarinet lesson.
That's excellent. But it's true, and it's excellent.
It's true. Yeah, it is true. Not actionable necessarily, but it's true.
Correct.
Talk to me about this, and this is actually just for me. So pardon me
Sure.
for anyone that's listening. This is for me. I have this weird block between reading bass clef, and playing and holding a clarinet. Like
Okay.
I'm not great at it when I'm playing the piano, and I'm not a great piano player, but I can kind of read it comfortably when I'm sitting in front of a piano. But the clarinet, I am so attached to reading treble clef. How did you use a system to learn how to read bass clef and play the clarinet?
I'll tell you, and this is funny. Like I got out of solfege class somehow in college, but and I guess I could read well enough, but not with an instrument. The first real gig I had to play on bass clarinet was the complete Romeo and Juliet ballet. And in the ballet orchestra that I was playing in, and I still play, it's in ballet theater, the part that was on the stand that I got was bass clarinet and bass clef, the whole thing. Now that's 3 hours long. And I took the part, and I was, holy smokes, I gotta and I carried it everywhere, and I read it like solfege exercises in my mind, not saying do, si, fa, none of that, just kind of like C, D, F, G, just and then practiced it, and the was really, I think, very well prepared, and there was a bunch of performances, and then it came back, whatever, and it was really learning by doing in that case. And the funny thing is, years later, I had to miss the same ballet. We needed a sub, got a sub shows up, part understands bass clef. Sub is like, I don't do bass clef that well, that fast, that whatever.
Right.
Digging and digging, turns out the librarian was the same edition, but a treble clef part, and he gave it to him. It was fine. And the guy in the librarian's like, well, do you just want the treble part? And I'm like, no, I learned bass clef. I'm doing this in bass clef. I don't want to change. The one thing for bass clarinet players, whatever, bass clef and in A, no, I can do one or the other. To do both at the same time, I just don't have those tools.
Years ago, I was in a it was a wonderful month of my life. I was working for a guy named Sufjan Stevens, and he's a great pop, indie artist. And there was this pretty complicated piece that we were going to record, and he hands it to me, and it's in bass clef. And like the microphones are about to be turned on, and I said, listen, I've got to be honest with you. This is a waste of time because this is going to be, this isn't going to work today. And I said, your time, if you spend 20 minutes even figuring out how to turn this into treble clef on Sibelius, that's going to be 20 minutes better spent than us sitting here with me trying to do this.
Wasting everybody's time.
So thankfully he did. And it was absolutely doable at that point.
Yeah.
I thought to myself, God, you hear all those stories about like studio guys and what they could do and the skill set they had. And it was the prototype of like, well, what are you going to do if this happens? Like it did not feel good. Did not feel good at all. And, and to this day, I still can't do it.
Well, I've done it. I try to do it. I try to read it as often. It's like it's a muscle. You use it, it stays. If you don't, it doesn't. Kind of. My C transposition for clarinet probably right now is probably awful because you rarely do it. I own a C clarinet now. So not that you end up playing a piece where there's 3 lines in C, you do it, it's fine, whatever. But I said when some opera company, I forget what it was to do one of the famous Verdi operas, whatever. It was just a rehearsal, and I'm talking to a friend the night before, and he goes, "You got a C clarinet, right?" He goes, "Yeah, you'll want to bring that." I'm like, "Oh, is there a lot of C clarinet?" And he goes, "You'll see." And it was like 85% C clarinet. It was like, I called my friend up. I'm like, you saved my life today. Like I would have just been horrendously embarrassed. I was just out of tune, but I was playing the right notes. So. But so just practice.
So to emerge from all this, let's say you're a guy sitting in New York and you want to make a record of yourself playing the bass clarinet. That seems nuts to me. Like, where does this idea come from? And like, how did you make it turn into a reality?
About 10 years ago, I put out a clarinet and piano album called The Forgotten Clarinet, which is on some of the platforms. I have to get it on the streaming platforms. Yeah. That's another project for the future. And I recorded a bunch of, French repertoire that it's called The Forgotten Clarinet, stuff people didn't know, just, wanted to do it. I was always like digging around shelves and sheet music and all that sort of stuff, and I've got a lot of sheet music, and I'm always kind of curious by nature with all this sort of stuff. So plus I wanted to do something. I wanted to like leave my place in posterity or whatever, the world. I don't know, it's a foolish idea, but whatever. I did it. I had done a Kickstarter, and I got support, and I did it and recorded, blah blah blah, done, finished out, congratulations, and then move on. And that was hard and expensive, and I don't know. And anyway, it started out, I want to try to do something for bass clarinet or whatever. Like someone wrote a piece for me. Oh, nice. And then next thing you know, I'm asking a couple of people commissioning. And the next thing you know, and Peter, my pianist, composer, we played at a clarinet convention in Belgium. And it was a nice convention. I went in, and normally I'm working at a booth on those things, and I play a little bit, but it's a nightmare, whatever. This, I went the day before, we rehearsed, played that morning, and I left that afternoon or evening after a nice lunch on the boardwalk there, whatever. We played in a little movie theater. Yes, a little movie theater with an upright piano that was, I mean, talk dry acoustic, man. I didn't know dry until this, but whatever. And to my surprise, there were maybe 25 people there, 30 people there, and I only knew two of them. So that was kind of neat. It felt good. And a couple people who I trusted who came, who I met then, this is nice music. You should record this. This is good stuff. Okay. And then it was, yeah, it's true. I'm known, for better or worse, I'm known as a bass clarinet player. Well, let me do something. Let's increase the repertoire, because quite frankly, a lot of the repertoire we have, modern repertoire, it's not beautiful. It's not lovely. It's not singing. It's not dancing. It's extended techniques and all that sort of stuff. And I can't do that stuff. I can barely slap tongue. I can't circular breathe. Multiphonics, a couple. I don't know. Like, it's just, it's not my voice, not my bag, not my thing. I mean, I feel, yes, I feel we all should do a little of that, because that's how we learn. It's maybe the thing of our time. But, I thought there was still nice music that's being written. And so I asked a couple composers, one of which who had written a piece who I commissioned, I'm going to record all this stuff. If you want to add or change or whatever, the next thing you know, that became a one movement piece, became a 3-movement piece. And then I found another friend, a composer, who's like, yeah, I'll write you something. And that was the first piece. And then I asked Paquito, could you make, do you have anything I could, sure, oh, sure, arrange it. Next thing you know, it's in the inbox. It's something he already written, he stretched out. And I asked Jimmy Heath, because Jimmy Heath, I knew him. He was such a nice man, funny, and just a great person. And I said, do you have anything that could, a piece, a song or whatever? And he, like literally like 2 days later, it showed up in my email. It's this little piece called New Picture, which is a tune that he's written. He changed something so he could extend rights or something. It's a long whatever. And I mean, I had done the same thing in the past with Phil Woods. Phil Woods had written a little, he had a piece, it's called For Jill with Love, his wife, a tune, and he arranged it for a trio that I'm in, for clarinet, saxophone, and piano. So I was like, you know what? And it was nice. It was fun. And so I asked Jimmy Heath, and he sent me something. And what I love about it, New Pictures, the name of the song. And
Right.
Philippe Couper, again, we were talking once about recordings, and he says, well, a recording is like a snapshot of that day. You're in a studio, you're where you are that day, you do it, you do your best. And it was like, and I thought, new picture, new recording, and that song. And I love this kind of sentimental jazz waltz sort of thing, like it is. And I wish I was an improviser. I wish I could have tried to play a solo, but I mean, it's just, again, not something I only improvise by accident, I should say. So it's not something I do, and that takes serious learning, time. So,
No, it does. Yeah.
so that's how the music came together. Peter and I, we went back to record in the same studio. We recorded the first album when it's a studio in outside of Paris, L'Autre Studio, it's called, and it's Jean-Pierre Bouquet is the name of the engineer, and it's in his house. He has a beautiful living room with a nice piano, all stone and really lovely, and all the cables go through the walls, and he's got the booth up 2 flights up in the attic space or whatever, and we went there, and we recorded. We even had 1 or 2 of the composers there for it. It's funny, we had 2 days to record this album. We get there the first day, we get through the first tune or 2 with one of the composers. He leaves, and we start working on the next thing, and we realize that the piano has slightly gone out of tune, needs adjustment. What do we do? Right. It's the time of year, it happens. Call the tuner. Tuner can come tomorrow morning. Oh boy, what do we do now? So what we did, and maybe I'm pulling the veil back a little bit, and maybe I shouldn't, but everybody edits. I basically recorded anything solo. So in Peter's piece, the 3 songs of Without Words after Schubert, there are cadenzas that connect each movement. So we recorded those, and then we recorded there's some other stuff in one of the other pieces. We did all that. We did everything we could. The cadenza in the Broton's Sonata Concerto. We did all that, and we'll come back tomorrow. And we went back the next day. Piano was tuned, and we in about 6 hours we recorded the rest of the CD, and then it was pretty. We got it all done. And like any project where you hear yourself or you listen to yourself, you have to listen to yourself. I hated it. Terrible. This was wow. And then we got it all edited nicely, and all the stuff. And the sound was awful. I don't know. So a lot of questions in email and back and forth. And then pandemic, I sat on it. I didn't want to know, and I forgot about it. And then Michael Markowski, the composer who wrote the first tune, Tarantula. What's going on? And he's a composer. He's not a clarinet player, so he's not that is fuzzy, or that's buzzy, or that's he's like, man, it's great. Why don't you put it out? What's going on? I don't like the sound. And he just said, why don't you go back in the studio and see what you can do about the sound? So Peter and I went. I made notes and we went and we pressed play in the studio with the engineer, the three of us, and we talked about sound and with this and this and that and this. And it was all manipulations of, it had nothing to do with the playing. It was none of that. It was a little bit balanced, and then it was sound, and how do you want it to sound? And the next thing you know, we leave, and I'm like, we were there 9 hours. I think we spent more time doing that than recording. And then
what I've learned in the pandemic, I've learned a lot about recording in the pandemic, but all my recordings happen right next to a highway, so there's a lot of problems with that. But how much you can impact the sound is and it's not impacting to make it sound like it, unlike it's to make it sound like it actually was supposed to sound in the first place.
And you learn there are all sorts of compression, and every time something gets emailed or sent, there's something that can go on, and all this stuff. And then the engineer told me, he says, look, you're going to hear we're in this thing with these ridiculous speakers, and we're listening just like that. And he goes, maybe you want headphones too, because you'll hear how it could be different. And you're hearing like my shirt's noisy, because he's like, the microphones are so sensitive, whatever. And then you start going, now can we tweak can I have a little more clarinet here and a little less, and then the next, when it was all said and done, honestly, and I'm not being a wise guy, I'm like, well, all right, you know what I mean? Like you feel like I feel like I can let this go. Like I feel like this can represent me. And look, I listened to it. There's still, this could have been, there were always like that way, but the thing is, I sent it to each composer when I thought it was done. I sent each composer, what do you think? And I got little feedback from each one about, basically positive. And I was like, really? And okay, I guess we did it. I guess we were able to, play their music for them. That's the danger with them being alive and then asking them.
100%.
And then like your own, you forget about being your own. Like there was a compressor on something where Salvador Broton's was like, there's no dynamics. Where are the dynamics? He's like, I heard you. I had played it with him as a concerto. He was conducting his orchestra. I was playing it as a soloist. And he goes, I know you play with dynamic. Like it was kind of, where are they on the CD, whatever. And it was true. There was all these compression things that would auto EQ or whatever. And it was like, wait a minute, we got rid of all that sort of stuff. And all of a sudden it started to come to life. So how did this all happen? This all happened with, saving little bits of money here and there. And I'm lucky it took a lot of time. And I didn't print CDs, so I didn't spend $2,000 on stuff that would be in my closet anyway. And I was lucky that it was just little by little, every time at this, the studio, it's $500 or $600 or it's, whatever. But I wanted to do it. I feel compelled to do it. I wanted to show again that the bass clarinet is a singing instrument. It could be a voice. And I feel like it's my voice. Honestly, from little gigs to chamber music stuff, I love it. But, every clarinet player, I'm still a clarinet player. I want to play clarinet. You have this chip on your shoulder where you always want to do it. But the bottom line is we're musicians. We want to share music with people. And if that's the tool that I'm using for it, that's the tool I'm using for it. So,
could you talk to us more about the experience of having the composer there with you? Because so infrequently do we get that when we're playing and performing and recording music, is the composer there, unless it's like a movie thing.
Sure.
But that's not really the same thing as an art piece. Talk to me about like the difference in your experience when the composer's there versus when you're playing a piece of somebody who's not there, or is perhaps not, hundreds of years ago wrote the piece.
Right. Well, that's something I always wish we had commentary from Mozart talking about how someone played his music. And there are certain letters that say, oh, they play my fast movements too fast and my slow movements too slow. That's kind of funny because we're doing that today also. Right. Not same thing with Brahms. There's one recording of Brahms playing piano. You can hear, okay, it's all scratchy and we're not piano players, so what do we know? But they write it. They have intention. In the 21st century, they had all their tools. They could write words. We could talk. They can give us all this explanation of what they want. And yet a lot of them still, it's just, whatever, allegro and of tempo range and all the slurs and stuff. And I like to be detail oriented when I play music. I think it's important. I think if someone put a staccato there, they want that note short, not sort of short, and I like having them there go, am I getting your intention? Because their expression is black and white on paper. We bring it to life. We make it, for lack of better words, we make it three-dimensional. We make it breathe. We make it, sing. And, on paper, it's not that way. So to be able to have a composer there and tell you, for saying in a set of ears, like, is something right or something wrong? It's funny. While recording this I forgot about this. Riedin was there. Alexander Riedin, who was a clarinet player a long time ago, lives in Switzerland, teaches composition. I think still composes. Anyway, we're in there, we're playing, and he says, that's something wrong, whatever. What we basically saw is, one page in the part got transposed or got something happened to it. So we're playing it. It worked, but it wasn't what he wrote.
Right.
And we're like, well, okay, what do we do? So we printed out the right page, we wrote in the right things. And but the funny thing is he liked something that was different. So we had that too. But to have the set of ears of someone that has the idea of what it should be like was great. I love that. And I remember asking Paquito, for example. So there are a bunch of recordings of this piece, Bandoneon, right? The whole Argentinian story, and Astor Piazzolla. There are things talking about this. And I'm like, well, what is it? He goes, it's a dance. You gotta know it's dance. It can't be too slow and it can't be too fast. It has to have this. I'm like, well, what is it? We did this together. He pulled out the metronome and he said, I wanted this, like this speed. You couldn't play around it, but that's the speed. Okay. Because there are recordings that are faster and slower out there. I love being able to get that. Now, does it mean that my recording's definitive? No, but it was that day he said, I want this, and I believe it should go that way. And I think I feel bad for composers in some respect because, like, we're, they got a bunch of yokels like us interpreting in black and white, going, well, I think it says this, so I'll do this. I mean,
Well, have you ever read the Gunther Schuller book, The Complete Conductor?
no.
I know him by reputation. I never met him, don't know anything about him, but it's a hilarious book because he very incredibly went through multiple, like 30 recordings of the same piece, and then was judging in a very judgy way, I think intentionally, if the conductor was honored the score.
Hmm.
And it was very interesting because it was that same idea of like, how much of this turns into our interpretation of what they did.
Right.
When you're talking about this, super interesting, the whole idea of, I think any composer would say, this needs to sound like their song that they're singing. It does need to have, it's undeniable, it has to have some of them in it, otherwise it's not going to be a very compelling performance. But how can we match that version to being honest to what I intended? That's a very delicate balancing act.
Absolutely. What I think, if we're true to ourselves, I think our personality comes out in our playing.
Yeah.
And we know, and I'm sure we all know people that that's the case. We also know people that do their best not to do that. They have an ideal that they follow, and there's no right or wrong. But I feel like if your interpretation of a piano in that situation and how far you go in a crescendo, I think that gives that personality and gives that Jay Hassler of the piece, or the David Gould of the interpretation of the piece. And I think that's good. I mean, I think it's our responsibility, obviously, to do our best, to do everything that the composer wanted, but and try to make this come alive. That's
One of my teachers when I was in high school gave me really good advice, and they said, if you just do what the music says, it's going to sound pretty good, just as a starting place. Just follow the instructions, and you don't even actually have to intentionally make a phrase. It'll actually happen if you follow the instructions properly, if this music has been edited well.
It was funny. I remember hearing a story about an older, let's just say it's a string quartet, and it's the older violinist there is much older. He's playing second violin, and everybody's talking about the phrase and high point and the this and all the emotion and all this. And what do you think? And his answer was, I would just love a good, clean performance. And we have to make sure. And what I find, I don't want ever to upstage the music. And I think there's over interpreting, or it becomes, I don't want it to become the Gould sonata. I want it to be someone's sonata played by Gould, for example. I feel that is our responsibility.
Yeah.
For better or worse. Now, that doesn't explain every situation or things, but I do feel like, and like what you said, let's start with what's on the page. That could be pretty good too. So, especially again, knowing that the composer wrote it. So that means I think they wanted it this way. They took the time.
I made a joke in one of my dojo classes the other day when I'd written, because I even the etudes that we are working on, I rewrite them with my own edits in there. Because if they're edited by somebody else, I figure I might as well edit it myself. And so I said, hey, it took me about 20 minutes to figure out those dynamics and put them in there. I really want to hear them. like I really thought about that.
Right.
It says it's my little like insight into like what it must feel like to be a composer. Like,
you've sat in orchestras just like I have, just like probably everybody that's going to listen to this. The text on the page, and that's something I learned in France. They called it the text. It's a common language. So if the back row, if the bassoons and the clarinets have dots, and we're playing with the cellos, and the cellos have dots, well, you play dots. That means you should be listening, but like that tells you, okay, there's space between every note. It's not licensed. Well, I'm going to play a little bit longer. I like it long. I don't like playing short. You know what I mean? Like, no, that's what you do. Like, that's what they ask. My job is to play those notes.
And there's something magical in an ensemble when everybody's listening, that everybody can find a way to agree and not talk about it.
Well, you can't talk when you're playing. At least we can, as woodwind players. and you don't talk in concerts, hopefully. So,
but I feel like once somebody starts to talk about it, it just gets unraveled and never gets
absolutely.
put back together.
I mean,
Yeah.
look, I'm sure when we were all students, I remember the chamber music rehearsals that went on hours and hours and hours, where we were talking about, every little 30-second note in, in whatever it was, and we took the time and we rehearsed and over and over again. It's amazing and it's incredible, and you really get to learn something. But then you stood to go, am I thinking too much about the micro and not enough about the macro? And but look,
But that's the right place for that, though. I mean,
absolutely,
yeah, yeah.
absolutely.
Um, so listen, so this recording, we can find it
Yep,
everywhere. Yeah.
all the streaming. So Apple Music, Spotify, Tidal, and all the other ones that I don't even know probably exist. It's even on YouTube. So you could find it. It's I mean, if you're streaming, it's free. YouTube, it's free with commercials, I guess.
Yeah.
But
Let me plug the whole thing. All that's going to be down in the description and or
wonderful.
the show notes. Don't forget
Thank
to
you.
like and subscribe. 5-star rating, please. Share
Yes,
this with your friends and find this record and all the places just listed, and just go ahead and do it by clicking down in the description.
outstanding.
Yeah. Yeah, no, because you got to learn how to do a good call to action when you're doing stuff. That's
Yeah,
actually one of my downfalls as a content creator is I don't do the call to action in the right place.
yeah, they love the click the buttons. And I mean, I joke around. I just did a little Van Doren class at Tanglewood, and I was at the Buffet Academy and all this. And I just made the joke, look, do me a favor, click like and subscribe. Like, to me, standing in front of them live, not on a device, not watching a thing. And I said, no, seriously, I've been stuck at 1,472 followers on Instagram forever. And and I'm like, no, take your phones out right now. I'm holding. I want to see notifications. Like, and people laugh, and then you get to pick up a couple. But yeah, no, the call to action, it's a great way of putting it. I mean, just anything to develop a following.
For me, like in starting this podcast and doing the YouTube channel and doing all the stuff that I do, like there's never going to be a great deal of money in it, and particularly the actual content itself, right? And I just want people who love the clarinet to just say, all right, I'm going to check it out. Hey, oh, there's a cat.
Sorry,
That's
come
all
on,
right.
keep going. Moving on over.
No, but just because like I'm so into this at this
Yeah,
point, like I just want people to be like, yeah, I'm glad you did that. And then you don't have to agree with it.
no, absolutely.
And if you don't agree with it, cool.
Yeah.
Be nice about it. But like it's fine.
The beautiful thing about this is there's no shortage of space for it.
Right.
And hopefully in the future, we'll have this. Like, for the album, we did interviews with all of the living composers.
I'll link those
Like
too. Yeah.
like all of them. Well, Jimmy Heath had passed, so I wrote some stuff, and Alexander Reed wrote things. He didn't want to be filmed. He's
Yeah.
older, but Salvador Brotens and Paquito and all these, they're short. The idea was just short, where it would be, again, getting program notes from the composer. Again, something else. What were you thinking when you wrote this? What was just because, for the future, hopefully in 100 years, someone's like, this guy recorded this bass clarinet piece, and I want to, what's it about? And then someone can find it, maybe.
Right. No, yeah, that is a beautiful thing that we can do now. Like I just wonder, like, when I was a kid, back when I was a kid, I used to have to go listen to a record.
Yeah, sure.
Like, and I had to actually actively search for things. And now the searching is so passive. And I feel like I get worried that these darn kids these days don't recognize that they should be pursuing it with that same passion of somebody who had to go to the library and check out a record or listen to the
Yeah,
record in the library to be able to hear these things. And so like I just get fired up. I want people to use the resources that are available, and I want to make as much of the resources that
yeah,
they can find this stuff. Because and it's not because like I want to be, I wouldn't mind being famous for it, but that's not why I'm doing it. I'll take it if it happens. But
be a happy byproduct.
yeah, right. Yeah, so let's get famous. But listen, man, this has been an incredible conversation, and I am very, very glad that I was able to overcome my rage of anger when I saw you were on another podcast first. I felt like I had to really grow as a human being.
Oh my God.
So
Oh my
not
God.
serious. So not serious. But
But no, look, anytime I love doing this stuff because it's a conversation with two people, and it can get edited or whatever, but you go with, you feel, you think, and you and I, we share a lot of stuff in common, stuff we do, stuff we want to do, stuff we hope to do, stuff we try to do, and all that. And I think it's easy to identify, which is great.
So listen, like I think our rapport is good, and I will be inviting you back to talk about more general clarinet topics.
Whenever you'd like.
Yeah. So yeah, no, yeah, because it's important to have a good partner to banter with, and if there's something that you can do other than play the clarinet, it's banter.
I think the banter is maybe what I'm best at. The smart aleck banter. I grew up. I was born for this.
All right, man. So thanks for being here. Don't sign off yet. We'll talk a little bit after I stop recording. All right, man. Thank you. We're all going to be checking out the album.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
All right, man. Take it easy.
Bye.
Thanks to David Gould for sharing all of that information with us. Once again, you can find the links to the record, to David Gould, to me, to the Clarinet Ninja Dojo, all in the show notes or the description if you're still here. Please make a comment. Make it nice. Give us 5 stars. Like, subscribe. Do all of it. Because I would love for people to hear all about the clarinet and share my joy, my love with anybody who has any warm feelings about the clarinet at all. Thanks for being here. We'll see you the next time.